You know whose thoughts I'm really excited about too, and obviously keep your dials tuned in here. That is Pro Football Network's very own Trey Wingo. He joins us on today's episode of the show. Trey, it's great to see you. I was just telling Tommy about the shenanigans yesterday. I was golfing, consuming, some fun adult beverages, and I get the notification. Davante Adams traded to the Las Vegas Raiders from the Green Bay Packers. First thing I did, I said I texted you, and I was like, wow, this is wild. Obviously, this has major ripple effects in the already ridiculous AFC West, as is Trey. What were your initial thoughts on what had happened with this massive trade?
Well, the first thing I was wondering, did Aaron Rodgers sign that contract yet? And apparently he was aware that this was going down and going to happen. But not anymore. Like the NFL is blackout drunk. Like the offseason is blackout face down at 3 a.m. drunk right now, and they're just. It's going crazy. There's two ways we need to sort of dissect what happened with Davante Adams. First of all, let's talk about it from the Packers' perspective, okay? If you're the Green Bay Packers, you're thrilled Aaron Rodgers is back, right? But you just lost the guy that was his best weapon, the guy that was going to be the last dance, the guy that has that chemistry. And that's the thing that Aaron Rodgers has been complaining about forever. Give me players I can trust. Give me people I can trust. Something happened with Davante Adams when Aaron Rodgers got his money that changed Davante Adams. I can tell you that with certainty. There was a schism there somewhere, and whether it was Davante thought that Aaron was taking money that might be earmarked for him, I don't know, but something changed in the way Davante Adams approached things very quickly. Then the question becomes, okay, you're thrilled to have Aaron Rodgers back, but that contract that Aaron Rodgers signed, the dead money on the contract goes up every year, which is the exact opposite of what normally happens, right? The dead money usually goes down the longer you're on that contract. Well, if you look at the contract that he signed, the dead money goes up. So that tells me really it's a year-to-year deal with Aaron Rodgers. And they're going to have to reconnoiter things if they want to go past this season, 2022. So if you're a Packers fan, are you okay with signing Aaron Rodgers and getting him back, but knowing that it might have cost you Davante Adams and you'll only have Aaron Rodgers for one more year? That's an interesting discussion, right? I know you love your quarterback and he's great, back-to-back MVPs, but there's no guarantee he'll be there past this season. And now you won't have Davante Adams, who just signed the highest deal ever for a wide receiver to go to the Raiders. And you get a 1 and a 2 back, which is awesome. I mean, remember when DeAndre Hopkins left Houston, they got a second-round pick and a terrible running back contract in David Johnson. Okay?
Oh, man.
So it just shows you how bad Bill O'Brien and the Texans completely screwed that franchise. That's a whole separate discussion. You do get a 1 and a 2 back, but at some point, is it going to be Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers thrown to those 1 and 2 picks if you use them as wide receivers? It's kind of a mess.
It absolutely is. And I think you bring up a great point there, because throughout the last 2 years, we've been doing nothing but talk about, okay, what's the contract going to be for Aaron Rodgers? We haven't really even been discussing what Davante Adams should be earning throughout this entire time. And I think that had to kind of play in his psyche. Hey, why am I being forgotten about right now? The Packers could have avoided all this if they just would have taken care of this last season. Instead, you let all this kind of fester and boil over. And while Aaron Rodgers was apparently aware of everything that was going on, you would think, thank God, because of what happened last season with the miscommunication or the lack thereof between the two sides, to have him all of a sudden back and then lose Davante Adams after having kind of feeling slighted at this point, that had to have already, the damage was done at that point, whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to be back with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and look, people will say over the last couple of years, I think the Packers with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback and without Davante Adams are 7-0, and that's great and that's cool. But it's not just Davante Adams that's left; they've had other receivers. Who is Aaron Rodgers throwing to right now? Literally, who is Aaron Rodgers throwing to right now? Who can you say with certainty are going to be the targets that Aaron Rodgers is going to be hitting this season?
Allen Lazard is probably the top one.
Yeah. Maybe, right? He's restricted, is he not?
I believe he's restricted. Yeah, I know. You have Randall Cobb back there. You have Amari Rodgers they drafted last year out of Clemson. He's very unproven. You don't even have Robert Tonyan back either, who's kind of Aaron Rodgers' number one red zone target. I mean, the year before he had more touchdowns than incomplete targets. But that's not moving the ball down the field. You have nothing still going on with MVS. So, I mean, you're still looking, okay, you look at the free agent market out there, you've got guys like Juju, you've got guys like Will Fuller you can try to bring in, but none of those guys are going to equal out to the production and the chemistry you had with Davante Adams. We saw this couple different interviews from Rodgers where those two would just look at each other and be able to change the play on the spot and never even have to give hand signals or anything else. And all of a sudden, boom, it's a touchdown. Like, you're not going to replicate that, especially given like the 5-month window we have until week 1 starts.
You have Jawan Winfrey and Aaron Jones, who obviously was a fantastic receiving running back, but that's just not enough. I mean, we were just talking about it. Even with Davante Adams when they played the 49ers, they had all those guys and it still wasn't enough for them. So it's like, when you look at it now, it feels like it's going to be a little bit more of a difficult task for them.
Yeah, and then there's the Raiders side of this, which I love, right? Yeah. First of all, Davante Adams, and for those that have forgotten or didn't know, Derek Carr and Davante Adams went together at Fresno State. They have long been friends, and apparently it was a lifelong dream for Davante to play for the Raiders. Now, I will tell you that what you're hearing from the Packers camp is accurate. They tried to offer him a deal, basically the same deal. I don't know if the language was different, but there was an offer on the table, and Davante said no. Something switched in him over this last whole handling of the Aaron Rodgers situation that made him change his mind. So that's part of it. But I know we've done this before, but I just want to know, over the last week and a half, these are the additions to the AFC West. The only player in NFL history with 35,000 career passing yards and 4,500 career rushing yards, quarterback Russell Wilson for the Denver Broncos. Player who's 4th in the NFL in sacks at 72.5 and tied for 2nd in forced fumbles, 22 since 2015. Khalil Mack is now with the Chargers. The player with the most interceptions, 22 in the NFL since 2019, J.C. Jackson, also goes to the Chargers. The player with the most sacks, 101.5, and forced fumbles, 30 in the NFL since 2013, Chandler Jones, is now with the Raiders. And the player with the most receptions, 432, receiving yards, 5,310, and receiving touchdowns, 47 in the NFL since 2018, that is Davante Adams, who is with the Raiders. This is an all-out arms race to stop one guy. And if you think anything else, you are kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself, okay? Yep. Like, even with all these moves, the Chiefs are still the favorites to win the AFC West and the second best favorites behind only Buffalo with the Von Miller move to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC because of one dude, and that's Patrick Mahomes.
I wanted to talk to you about this as well, because I was talking to somebody in Buffalo, and they said, hey, covering this Bills team, we saw Tom Brady for, a handful of years, just constantly just running through the division. And nobody in the AFC East ever made these power moves or ever tried to reset the balance. They just said, okay, we're going to have a new head coach. We're going to have a new quarterback. And it never worked out for them. Now we're seeing it to where, especially with the rising salary cap, Trey, we're seeing the AFC West. It's just a constant, hey, hold my beer. I got the shiniest new toy. Now the question is, you look in this division, and the first thing I said yesterday, the Broncos, they need more cornerback help now. They only have 4 guys on the roster. That's not going to get it done. And if you're the other teams too, I think the Chargers, obviously with J.C. Jackson, that's there. They still need some help at cornerback. The Chiefs need help from, at cornerback outside of L'Jarius Sneed. So each team has at least one really good cornerback. But man, now in this division, it amplifies. And the Raiders, with all those weapons that they have, with Renfro in the slot, they become very dangerous in the conversation.
Well, look, in the AFC West, what you really need are 2 grade A corners and 2 grade A tackles. Just look at the pass rushers on every team, right? You have Max Williams and Chandler Jones. You have Joey Bosa. You have Khalil Mack. You have Chris Jones and Clark in Kansas City. I mean, we have pass rushers extraordinaire in the AFC West right now, up and down the roster. You have Bradley Chubb, for the Denver Broncos. But Buffalo is interesting, right? Because you mentioned nobody could find a way to beat Tom Brady and the Patriots. Well, this is why Buffalo is loading up. By the way, the loss of Cole Beasley, I think, is significant. And they just released Star Lotulelei today. Jordan Phillips also moved on. So there's going to be some shuffling that they're going to have to deal with. So why did the Buffalo Bills get Von Miller? Well, the Bills are 1-3 against the Chiefs, including 2 playoff losses. And in those games, Mahomes throws 10 touchdown passes with 2 picks and was sacked just 6 times. In the playoff losses, the Chiefs put up 42 and 38 points. Von Miller has the most career sacks by an active player with 115.5. He has 9 sacks in his last 6 playoff games, including 3 games with 2+ sacks. That is exactly why Buffalo is doing what they're doing. We can talk about the Raiders, and we can talk about the Chargers, and we can talk about Denver and, trying to upgrade and get Russell Wilson back to what he was when they went to back-to-back Super Bowls in 48 and 49. But Buffalo is the team that I think a lot of people feel is now doing everything they can to make sure they stop Kansas City. And those things that I just told you are why they did what they did in getting Von Miller.
And you brought up the good point. Like, we talk about, they've been trying to beat Tom Brady at the same time. Like, the Bills are still loading up to beat also one guy. It's Patrick Mahomes. Like, all of these teams in the AFC are loading up trying to beat what the Kansas City Chiefs have been able to accomplish over these last several years. Like, they've been one of the best teams without question, week in and week out. Like, we worry about them like in the beginning of the season. Oh, Patrick Mahomes is starting to slide off. The Chiefs are starting to lose it. Guess what? Come November, they're right back where they are. And that's why all these teams are just having this massive arms race to try to keep up. And I don't know if they're going to be able to, because like I said, we can sit here and try to postulate and guess what these teams are going to do. But until those whistles blow, we're not going to know how these teams shape out.
Well, not only that, but like the first week of free agency is splashy, right? It's huge. My God, it's been insane this year. You go back and look historically, normally it's the second week guys and beyond that come in a little cheaper, that come in perhaps a little more scheme thematic, that arguably have more of an impact than the big splash guys. And just think of the guys that are out there. You mentioned it. Tyrann Mathieu, he's leaving Kansas City. He's going to be out there. Jarvis Landry is still out there. Juju Smith-Schuster is still out there. Stephon Gilmore is still out there. Melvin Ingram might be coming back to Kansas City, seeing this market sort of dry up. I would be shocked if that doesn't happen. Suddenly, Zadarius Smith is back on the market after reneging on the deal to go back to the Ravens. Jadeveon Clowney is still out there. Odell Beckham Jr. is still out there. And we still have lots of quarterback moves to make. But I'm just saying, we have so many things that have happened. Or La'el Collins is still out there. We have so many of these big names that have signed, but sometimes it's the second wave guys that come in slightly under the highest priced guys that go to a team that fits them perfectly. Sometimes those are the ones that have the biggest impact on your wins and losses and your postseason play than the big splash guys in the first week.
Well, obviously, our thoughts on NFL free agency continues here, and Trey makes a very great point, too, about the second wave, because that's when the market value executives tend to have a little bit more leverage, especially for the other players that maybe don't get the deals they anticipate. Excited to get Trey's thoughts next week here on PFN Daily. Trey, hey, thank you so much for jumping in, my friend, talking with us as always. I know our audience loves it. You can check out Trey's work, obviously, the More Than Football podcast. It's currently out of season right now. Some amazing interviews from in season, some great insight and more. You get that. The More Than Football podcast, hosted by Trey Wingo, free and available everywhere you get your podcast. And also every single week now here on youtube.com/Pro Football Network, Draft Insiders with Trey Wingo and Tony Pauline. Trey, appreciate you stopping by as always, my friend.
You got it, guys. We'll talk next week. I'm sure we'll have something to discuss.
A ton is going to happen between now and then. And you get that all here on PFN Daily.